Hey, this is David Owen.
And this is Marian Cowagowan.
And this is You Show Me Yours, a podcast where a married couple talks about the movies and television that they loved before the first date. And this time I was made to watch Matinee.
Yes, it's the 1993 movie that expanded my vocabulary. And I think of it to this day whenever I use the word metamorphose, which admittedly is not that frequently, but I do.
Mm-hmm.
So I should say this once we started watching this, Dave was like, oh, I've seen this. So this is not entirely new to him, but close. Because I think both of us, we had seen it when it came out 30 years ago and not since. And now that I've seen it again, I'm wondering, why is this not more popular? Because it's great.
Yeah.
This is a fun little movie about a 60s horror movie comes to town in Key West during the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone was super on edge, and that's a great time to bring a horror movie to town.
It is.
And teenage romance and hijinks ensue, and the building collapses.
Sort of.
Fun for all.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and I never think of directors, but when I saw the director of this, I knew that you would notice it, Dave. It's Joe Dante.
Yes.
Who I can't remember what we've seen that he did, but I know you will know.
Gremlins.
Gremlins.
Gremlins. That's how that's the proper pronunciation.
Okay.
Actually,
Okay.
A lot of people say it wrong. They don't know.
You're
Joe
wearing your Gremlin shirt. I just realized.
I am. Yeah.
Who got that for you?
You got
it
me.
was me.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Joe Dante is he's one of those directors, like, he did for the majority of his career. He's still around. He still directs stuff, just a lot of TV, a lot of stuff. But he did. Steven Spielberg had this stint where he did E.T. and was involved in different stuff like that. That was kind of like kid friendly. So much so that years later you get J.J. Abrams doing Super 8 as an homage to that sort of thing. But like the guy who was really doing that, and that really, I don't know if Abrams cites him or not, but the guy that was really doing stuff like that is Joe Dante. He was doing, Gremlins. He was doing Explorers with River Phoenix. He did The Burbs. He just did a bunch of movies in the 80s and 90s, and just like he just had a way of making movies that was kid friendly but also adult friendly, and he is an unsung like hero of family friendly movie making. I just don't think he gets enough credit. This is probably a movie I would have eventually put onto my list, but after stuff like Burbs.
Mm-hmm. That is one that I have not seen.
Burbs is great.
Tom Hanks, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's all I know.
And I'm my brain is skipping on other Joe Dante movies, but there was a point where I could name like most of the ones he did from through the 80s and 90s. But of course, he did both Gremlins movies, including the new batch, which we will watch soon.
Okay.
But yeah, he's just an amazing director, and I think he just doesn't get his due.
Mm-hmm.
When people think back, like there's several directors like that that don't get their due, but he's one that I really think you can see his influence in a lot of places, and I think a lot of people don't even know that. A lot of people like Abrams might mistakenly think he was some of the things that he was using in Super 8 was like, Spielbergian, but really they were Dantean.
That's kind of a nice little trick of things when the influence of someone is so deep that you have to go through several layers to get back to the genesis of it. So, well, you said movies that were both kid friendly and adult friendly at the same time, and I think this fits that nicely because I saw this when I was 15 or 16, and so my brother would have been there too, so he was 12 or 13, and we both thought it was hilarious to the point that for months I think we would have been with my dad. I think we took my mom to it too. For months, our whole family would, whenever we said a big vocabulary word, we would go metamorphose or change or, just, it was great.
Oh yeah.
And it didn't feel inappropriate for us at the time. And now I'm watching it as an adult, and it feels like there's jokes that are meant for me as an adult too. So, and that's one thing that I like about movies that are kid appropriate but have some jokes for adults, but not the kind where your kid turns to you and says, wait, why is that funny? And you have to go, never mind, because it's actually a penis joke.
Yes.
I just like jokes for adults, but not like adult.
Yeah, and like there are a couple of those in here, but they're not even like the really good versions of those jokes. And there was a while in the 90s post like Little Mermaid where Disney was really good at it. It's all over the Hercules animated Disney movie.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, they got really good at it. And it's the sort of thing that nowadays Pixar does, and like the Illumination stuff does really well too.
Yeah.
But yeah, like that sort of thing where the best ones, the kids, it doesn't even faze them.
Yeah.
But the parents, they only ask because the parents start laughing.
Yeah.
But yeah, Joe Dante, the other movie I was trying to remember is Inner Space.
Oh, yeah.
Inner Space was a big one for him. And then he did, he got his start in like some horror stuff. He did Piranha and The Howling. And also, apparently, according to IMDb, he was the uncredited director of Rock and Roll High School with the Ramones. But
okay.
yeah, like his career just sort of faded into this sort of weird thing. Like he did Small Soldiers, which was great, and a movie that we'll eventually watch, if this podcast goes far enough. And then he just started like directing CSI and like MacGyver, like the new MacGyver and Hawaii Five-0 and stuff. And like, he's got a couple movies coming out. Like, I feel like he's due for a renaissance.
Mm-hmm.
And
how old is he at this point?
I'm gushing over him, but like, it's very possible that he is like, ostracized from Hollywood for a reason that we just don't know about.
Yeah.
Born in 46. So he's coming up on 80. He was 77, 70.
7. I'm like, I can't do math. I'm like, what year?
Yeah. So I mean, he's on up there. So yeah, I mean, like his window's closing, so to speak. But yeah. He's great.
Yeah. Well, let's get into the plot of this movie for people who have not seen it, which is probably a lot of people, because I really don't think that this made a huge splash at the time, and it's not one of those that's become a cult classic since then, as far as I know.
I bet it was a crazy hard movie to market.
Yeah, it kind of is. You're like, a movie theater in the Cuban Missile Crisis? The what?
Yeah,
what?
Like I can't imagine like the movie voiceover guy, like Gene is a kid.
In a world where nuclear war is on the horizon, two kids make out in a fallout shelter.
Yeah, I think you recruited the wrong voiceover guy for this. you get because you got to do like the guy who does like the comedies, and then it goes dark. You don't start with "in a world." Gene is a kid who's looking for love in all the wrong places,
and when he finds it, the world just might end.
He's obsessed with monster movies and making friends on Key West. Yeah. But it's the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Oh,
and
no!
Now Gene's got to contend with a bully and the Ruskies.
Well, I was about to say, there's not, aside from John Goodman, and I guess at the time Kathy Moriarty was kind of a name.
Oh, yeah.
But she's a bit of an acquired taste, I think. There's not a whole lot of stars in this, except for the fact that if you like character actors, there totally are. Like, for just, oh my God, it's that guy that I love in other things. This cast is kind of stacked.
Oh yeah. And Dante brings his players, Dick Miller, who is in almost every.
Now you're gonna have to remind me who's who, because I know the characters.
The two guys that he has. So Woolsey, John Goodman's character, has a couple guys. He's a full on con man. Like wrapped up in a Hollywood director's cloak,
He's
sort of.
A little bit of like Hitchcock meets Ed
P.T.
Wood
Barnum, like kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so he has two guys who sort of come ahead of him, and they do a faux sort of think of the children kind of protest, which he interrupts and comes in and hey, and the shorter of the two guys, the much older guy, is Dick Miller, and he's also Futterman in Gremlins, the guy with the tractor who him and his wife get get done in. And the other guy of the two is, I think his name is John Salas.
I think that was what it said on the credit list. And he's a director who's done
he's a director, and he's one of those, like, he gets bit parts in lots of movies. But the other, like, Dante player is Robert Picardo, who most people will know as the hologram doctor from Star Trek Voyager for like 10 seasons. But he is like the definition of a working actor. He did a lot of a fair amount of makeup work in the 80s and stuff. He plays a character like a weird haggy witch character in the movie Legend. Okay. And he does voices of characters like animatronic characters and like 3D characters, and he does video games, and he does a little bit of everything. And he's in most of the Joe Dante movies up through the 90s.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's one of his main players. He plays the theater manager who is obsessed with his fallout shelter.
A bit of a nervous Nelly.
Yeah, yeah. And you know, if you don't know Robert Picardo, like, you probably do. Like,
if you see him, you'll know.
Bald head, and
Yeah. Do you know the other person who I kept looking at him going, he looks so familiar. Who is that?
No.
What is he? He's like the owner of the theater, I think.
The older guy that's the owner of the theater.
Yeah. The Maytag repairman.
Okay.
From the ads from like 30, 40 years ago. The one who was so lonely because Maytags never break, so no one ever called
that was him?
Yes. According to his Wikipedia page.
According to his Wikipedia page.
Yes. I always have to put that disclaimer because, like, Wikipedia is not 100% reliable. But yeah, lots of very familiar faces at the time.
It's just, and it's there's there's a movie within the movie, and I swear I recognize the doctor in the movie.
He looks very familiar.
But I can't place him, and I can't find him in the credits.
But the general, you laughed as soon as you saw him, and I had to look him up to see who he was.
Yeah, the general's Kevin McCarthy, who was the
not that one.
Yeah, no.
Not the politician.
Who was the bad guy in UHF, as you may recall.
Yeah,
and also was in the original Invasion of the Body Snatchers, and just he's been in a ton of stuff. And now you have actually seen him in something else besides UHF.
Yeah.
Despite me telling you in the UHF episode, you've certainly seen him in something. You had. You just didn't remember.
Now I have.
Yeah, and he's there as an homage to his roles in 60s and 70s B horror movies.
Yeah, I feel like if we were closer to the age of the kids in this movie, we would recognize a lot more homages and tips of the hat to the kind where there's double features on Saturdays and you can stay in the theater all day, or that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Another one, did you notice at one point, so Gene is the main character and he takes his brother to like a family, like a cartoon or a family movie or whatever, and it's the stupid thing about someone's uncle was turned into a shopping cart, which I think is supposed to be like making fun of the Shaggy Dog
kind of thing. Like there's one where the guy turns into a car. I mean, like there's all sorts of different
thing for a while.
Yeah, and it's like clearly a take on like 60s Disney family movies back before Disney really understood that their bread and butter was in their animated characters. Yes. They tried to make all of these like cheesy comedy family movies. Like there are two robbers that show up and they literally have like black masks on and stuff, like.
But you know who the girl is who's her uncle is the shopping cart?
I don't think so.
Naomi Watts.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Awesome. I did see her in the credits and I was like, oh, what
in the world? Yeah. No, I saw her on the Wikipedia page. It's just listed as shopping cart ingenue. And I was like, what in the world? And then I saw her and I was like, so
interesting.
And as far as the kids, the only one that I really recognize is Kelly Martin from Life Goes On and ER, and Christy, which I never saw, but I think was on the Hallmark Channel, if that tells you anything. But she's Becca on Life Goes On. Sure. She plays Sherry, who is kind of like, I imagine she's a bit fast.
Yes.
In her.
With their 25-year-old boyfriend.
Yeah. And then they're what, 13?
Yeah.
Ish?
Yeah.
13, 14, 15, something like that.
She has the part of the plot is that she has this quote unquote older boyfriend who is being played by an actor who doesn't look like, I'm guessing 17.
Yeah.
Maybe is what he's in juvie.
Yeah.
And he gets out early. So he's got to be under 18, and they've got to keep it under 18 or else it's just creepy. But the actor looks, 25.
He looks, well, what I was thinking is he's like a poor man's Danny Zuko from Grease, which is appropriate because everybody in that movie was in their like late 20s or early 30s and playing teenagers. So
yeah, and for all I know, that was an intentional casting choice because he is a greaser.
Yeah,
so they may have been casting this like 25-year-old looking actor to play a 17-year-old as a little wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Yeah, there's homages woven in that we will never ever. Yeah, I really would like to watch this with somebody who was older, but
and the other girl, I forget her name, Jean's
Lisa Yakub. Yeah, I
forget her character in the
Sandra.
Movie. Sandra. Yeah, the only other thing I know her for is she plays Randy Quaid's daughter in Independence Day.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. That's the only other thing I remember her for.
And the two main boys, the Gene, the blonde, he's British. Oddly, his name is Simon Fenton, and he's still acting. He's been in a bunch of stuff in Britain. He was in Band of Brothers at one point. I don't recognize him from anything else. And the brunette boy is named. His character's name is Stan, and the actor is Omri Katz, which I think you mentioned Small Soldiers. That he rang a bell. I think he was, but I couldn't remember.
And that was the kind of thing, like Joe Dante would bring you back. Like if he liked you, he'd bring you back. And most of those teen actors, they all kind of hit several of the different 90s shows and movies. And then around 97, 2000, most of their careers kind of started to peter out, except for the, couple that are still working.
Well,
today.
They got out of the cute teen phase and just were, there's a bunch of actors from this time period where I remember them only because Teen Beat and Tiger Beat and Bop and everything told me that I should think they were cute. And the magazines came with posters, and I'd put them up in my room and be like, oh, Brandon Call is so cute. He's so dreamy. He's the kid on Step by Step, the brother.
Yeah.
And also Baywatch. And in reality, I didn't think he was that cute, but Teen Beat told me I should think so. So I did. But I don't think Omri Katz got even Teen Beat's attention. So that's why he is where he is. Sorry.
Unfortunate.
Or Simon, what's his face. But anyway, so Gene is really our main character. His dad never appears in the movie except for in like a home movie flashback. His dad is in the Navy, and they're at the naval station at Key West. Which, does Key West have a naval station? I have no idea.
I feel like I remember learning about it during the crisis.
Okay. It doesn't seem like the kind of thing you'd make up. Anyway, they're stationed there, and I think they've moved there pretty recently, and it's him and his mom and his dad and his younger brother. And if Gene is like 13 or 14, Dennis is like 7, I guess.
Yeah.
I love the names, by the way. They're very appropriate for this age group. Gene and Stan and Dennis and Harvey and Sherry and Sandra. Like, those are what today would be grandparent names. It's hilarious. And at one point, Gene's mom says to him, you should try to make some friends. And he's like, we're just going to move again. Why bother? So we can tell like he's kind of a loner. He entertains himself. He is very solicitous of his brother because their dad is probably deployed a lot and all this other stuff. But, he's a young kid and he wants friends. And so he ends up becoming friendly with some kids at school, including Stan. And he knows a little bit about this. The movie starts like right as I think Kennedy tells the nation that, Russia has nuclear capabilities and we're afraid that they're going to use them, etc. And Gene's dad is sent on a boat to have a blockade around Cuba. And everyone's afraid. And Gene knows a little bit about it, enough to talk to his classmates about it, including Stan. And so they become pals. Stan introduces him to Sherry, who Stan has a crush on. She gets the Jennifer Love Hewitt in Can't Hardly Wait treatment. Like, it's practically slow motion. I think there was a wind machine when we first saw her. Like, her hair is blowing in the breeze, and she's putting up, posters for the school dance or whatever. She's very peppy. And everything. And that's when we get the exposition that she had a boyfriend who was in reform school. I like reform school. That's a term they don't use enough anymore.
Oh yeah, no. Yeah. That's a good.
Yeah. It turns out that she, like I said, she's a little bit fast. She says her older boyfriend taught me about my body and about being a woman and about pleasure. And I'm just like, what in the world? First of all, I don't think that guy taught you anything upon meeting him. Like he did, but you're 13. What did he possibly? I don't want to know. But anyway.
Yeah.
So Stan has a crush on Sherry, longstanding. Jean, meanwhile, develops a crush on Sandra, who we first meet when they're having an air raid drill in school, and they all go in the hall and, crouch down and put their hands over their heads, that kind of thing. And she refuses to do it because she's like, this isn't going to protect anything. This is stupid, blah, 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 blah. Turns out that her parents are... I don't know what the term for them was at the time. I mean, now we would call them liberals.
Yeah, they were like, I mean, they were the sort of people that would get accused of being communists because they weren't falling in line and they were questioning things.
When they let her call them by their first names.
Yeah, they're like reformed hippies kind of thing, but it's too early for them to be reformed hippies.
Right.
They're not yuppies yet. Like, yuppies don't exist yet, so there's some kind of
like
proto.
They would be beatniks, except they live in Florida. They're the one at this the little faux protest outside the movie theater. They're the ones who are there saying to these supposed protesters, "Have you actually seen the movie?"
Right. Yeah, the sensible ones.
Which is still a question that needs to be asked.
Yes. Also, like not the marks that Woolsey is looking for.
No.
Like he kind of, puts distance between them.
Yeah. And they clearly, they talk to Sandra about stuff and current events and all these things. And Sandra has the movie's only mention of race.
Yes. Yeah.
She says, why do you think that, what is it? We send the black kids to a different school that isn't, I don't remember, but we don't see them as people.
Yeah, she's talking about injustices and how that, we're trying to be convinced to wipe out the Russians, because we don't see the Russians or the black kids as people.
Which, very fair point.
Yeah, like
then as now.
Yeah, like you get the point that the parents probably attended some protests and they're raising like a daughter who is going to definitely in the 70s be somebody's trouble.
Oh, yeah. Well, the 70s
protests.
and the 80s and the 90s. I put on my notes, where is she today? What is she doing? I feel like she's one of the people who regularly protest at, what is it? School of the Americas, the place in Georgia where they basically teach military people how to overthrow regimes or something. Sure. I don't know. Or she's in prison for one of those previous protests.
Oh yeah,
that's what I'm guessing. She'd be fun to hang out with.
Oh, for sure.
I think.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Jean's talking to her because for whatever reason, he was really impressed by her stand against the air raid drill, and he talks to her and he tells her that his dad's in the Navy, and she's like, "Oh, I'm sorry for, insulting your father and saying he's killing Russians. I'm sorry about your dad, and there's, they develop a crush on each other in this way that 13-year-olds do. That's very cute,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. And she is going to, because her parents have said, you shouldn't have feelings about this movie unless you go see it. She's there.
They're going to go see it.
Yeah. And this movie, the big one that we see at the end, Woolsey's been promoting it as it's like you've never seen it before. It's more terrible than you can imagine. Blah 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 blah. And it's what is it? The power of the atom is unleashed, and terrible things happen. And it's a man is bitten by an ant when he's at the dentist while he's getting an X-ray.
Yeah, this is my favorite part of this.
And the intersection of ant bite and radiation, he's turning into an ant bit by bit. So first it's his head, and then it's his hands, and then it's his whole body, and then he grows, and then he's and how does it actually end? Did they kill the ant?
I
don't think they told us.
Well, they do. The military starts shooting. So I assume, and that so I'm assuming that they kill him. I mean, that's the sort of trope that they're going for in that moment of Godzilla. Like
I was, they did not have a line. "'Twas beauty killed the beast."
Yeah.
That was a miss.
No, but the whole movie inside the movie is great.
It's fantastic.
It's I love that the dentist just happens to have a diagram of the human brain on his wall. And so he can go, actually, the human brain is, it's just.
And it's a complete like high school anatomy classroom diagram. Like it's not actually anything that a dentist would need or that a brain surgeon would need.
Yeah.
It's just like
the most basic
the brain.
Yeah. And it's that thing of like that they had to do in the 50s, right? Like we have to teach you this as quickly as we can. We're going to bring a scientist in or a doctor, and he's going to, as quickly as we can, and in the most simple terms.
And he's going to explain all the big words, where you get into he's going to metamorphose or change.
Yeah. Yeah. It's great. Yeah.
He's been exposed to radiation, which, as you may know, is measured in Rontgens.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. It's the whole movie. I wish there was a version of this that just had the movie.
Oh,
just had Mant.
God, yes.
Mant is the name of the movie, by the way.
Not Ant-Man, it's Mant. And Kathy Moriarty is Woolsey's partner,
girlfriend,
something.
Yeah.
But creative partner she's an actress in all his movies. And she plays the wife of Bill the Mant in this movie, and her chief role is to say, Bill, what's happening to you?
Yeah.
Oh no, Bill, we better get you to a doctor. Doctor, can't you help him?
Yeah.
Bill, stop doing that. She's
yeah. But in her husky voice.
Yeah.
She
add 50 packs of cigarettes to my voice.
But doctor.
Right.
Yeah, and this, the whole riff on what they're doing with their theater setup. So when Woolsey's idea is that he's going to revolutionize cinema by, bringing it out of the screen. So at the appropriate time, there's a buzzer in your seat that buzzes you when the character gets grabbed on screen. It's like 3D, but to the max. And it's, he's got rumble vision, which is like big subwoofers that make the whole place rumble. He's got, when they're shooting at the giant ant on the building, he's got, faux mortars that are going off in the front of the theater.
Isn't there smell-o-vision at some point? I thought there was something. Wait, they're spraying the ants, and I saw some kind of mist come out of the wall.
Maybe. They don't sell it. They don't make a big deal out of it.
Okay.
So if they did, it was probably cut for some reason.
Okay.
But yeah, like it's this idea that was going on in the 60s. And there were other things, like there were different horror movies were the main ones doing it. There was like, I want to say 13 Ghosts had some kind of vision thing. I think the original 13 Ghosts, you had glasses that you put on when they put their glasses on in the movie, and you couldn't see the ghosts on screen without the glasses on, because they were basically just using 3D.
Right,
but instead of having using it to create a 3D effect by like haloing the characters, they were literally just putting the ghosts in one color and everything else in the other color.
Pops out at you.
Yeah. So you didn't see the ghosts till you put on the glasses. Yeah. And there's a modern remake of 13 Ghosts, which is great. I'll have to show it to you sometime.
I'm glad though that the trend of movies in 3D seems to have passed, because as a person who wears glasses already, it is no fun.
Yeah. It
and I
can
never
be difficult.
thought that it was that it didn't add to my enjoyment of the movie.
Yeah. There's some interesting uses of it, but yeah. And nowadays, the funny thing is, there are theaters that do a lot of this stuff. There's the 4D stuff, which has moving seats. Places like, I want to say Disney, they do a thing where they squirt some water in your face when water splashes up in the screen. They probably don't do that anymore with COVID and stuff, but yeah. And smells and movement and motion and rumbling and things poking in your back and all this sort of stuff. Like, this is something that actually sort of came to fruition modernly, like in modern times, as things like pistons and actuators and stuff got better, hydraulics and stuff got better. You could move a whole bank of like, a row of like 10 seats. Yeah. So it's really interesting. And a lot of what they were doing in this movie was direct, excuse me, sort of directly taking off on things that other movies were trying in the 60s.
Yeah.
Having a guy run through the theater and, stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, and that's the next thing. So, Harvey, the reform school boyfriend, has been released from reform school, shown back up to try to reclaim Sherry. He sees that Sherry and Stan are now an item, and he's very jealous. And he tells Stan to like knock it off. You can't date her; she's mine. You know, blah 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 blah. Which predictably, Stan says, "Oh, I have to go be at school. I can't have our date." And Sherry shows up at the movie theater, and he's there, and you know, blah 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 blah. If you've seen any episode of the Brady Bunch, you know how this goes. Like that's very predictable.
Yeah, any sitcom.
Yeah, pretty much. So Harvey is trying to get a job, and he ends up being hired by Woolsey to be the guy in the ant suit who runs out and scares people in the theater. And he's also doing some effects, like he's pressing the button for the rumble vision, for the this, for the that, you know, that kind of thing. And he's not very bright, and so he messes a lot of things up. Yeah. And Woolsey at one point is like, "Don't ever turn this dial above 6." So immediately you're like, okay,
Chekhov's
that's
dial.
Gonna go. Yeah, that's gonna go above 6. To their credit, they don't push that real easily. Like I don't think I ever saw a dial where it was clearly going past 6. But you know like that's what happens.
A less elegant filmmaker would have a insert of him turning the dial up, you know, to pass the where it should be.
Yeah. Well, and you know, Woolsey does not set Harvey up for success because he's got these clipboards. He's like, okay, and when you hear this line, you do this, and this line, you do this, and then you go over here and you did it. And I'm like, could we have it written down, maybe?
Yeah. Well, and Harvey does end up having it written down. He's got a
okay.
But he's got like a front and back sheet of paper that's got all these cues on it.
And meanwhile, he's wearing this ant suit with the headdress that comes down, and you know, and so like he's not very bright, and he's got equipment failure, and you know, various things. So he's the one who runs out in the audience and scares people, and you know, and at one point at one point he sees Stan and Sherry making out because by this point they've made up, and he's supposed to like just run up and down the aisles and scare people, but instead he punches Stan out. And Woolsey and Kathy Moriarty, whose character's name I forget, she's just Kathy Moriarty in my notes.
Yes.
In the back are like, what in the world's going on? But the theater owner is like, this is great. This is great showmanship. I love it. You know, he's oblivious to the whole thing. And there was supposed to be a bit where Harvey grabbed Kathy Moriarty, and at that point she's like, nope, that's not happening. I don't want to get punched. But he does later anyway. So. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, the theater manager, whose name I also don't remember, do you? I don't know.
No,
just Robert Picardo. Is, like I said, a bit of a nervous Nelly, and is convinced that Armageddon is coming any second, and he has a fallout shelter.
Yeah, because the rumble vision is set up too high.
Well, right. I mean, he's been convinced of this anyway.
Yes. Oh, yeah. You're just prepping that.
Yeah, and he has the fallout shelter ready to go with food and water and filtration and, you know, all these things. And a door that, you know, takes 30 seconds to close. And once it closed, there's a lock and it won't open for months, you know, that kind of thing. The rumble vision is set too high. He is just like kind of down in his office waiting for the show to let out. And he hears all this stuff and feels the rumbles and is like, oh my God, it's happening. He also has the television on and the signal goes out, and like that plus the rumble, he's like, okay,
he drops his little hand radio, which is tuning him into like the military frequency into the fish tank. So that goes. So all of a sudden he's got nothing.
Comedy of errors, and so he assumes the worst and goes into the fallout shelter to try to set it up, but then he has to go out for some reason, and the kids run in
for goldfish food.
Oh, that's right.
Goldfish food.
He forgot the goldfish. Yeah. The kids run in, and he's like, "No, you need to get out so I can get in." Well,
Harvey chases them there, and then the Stan pulls the shotgun that's in the fallout shelter on Harvey. Harvey runs away. The kids are like, "Oh, look at this cool fallout shelter."
Meanwhile, the door is closing.
Accidentally hit the door.
And so Gene and Sandra are stuck in there. And they have this...
Takes about 2 minutes.
Yeah, for them to start talking about, oh, what if we have to repopulate the world? We're like Adam and Eve. And then they are doing some pretty good making out for age, 13 or whatever. They're not in peril for all that long. It probably felt like a while, but it wasn't. It was probably like 10 minutes.
It's 5 to 10 minutes max.
But when the door is opened up, both of their parents, Sandra's parents and Jean's mom are there, and the parents are like, "Oh, okay,
yeah,
interesting, okay."
Yeah, I think the mom says, "Are you okay?" And then Woolsey says, "Looks like he was doing fine to me." Just like another one of those little jokes thrown in there, you know.
And And Jean's mom is just overheard in the background talking to Sandra's parents, like, well, I'm sorry. I'm sure she's a very nice girl, but something.
Right, yeah.
And I'm just, and then the line that I couldn't hear, but you said, Sandra's dad asks her, is he military?
Yeah.
Which probably for those parents is like the kiss of death.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And it's, it's no mistake that these two kids are getting together because both of them are seeing like the opposite of what they see every day.
Right. Yeah.
So it's like,
in a sequel to this, they're both protesting the war together or something like that, But meanwhile, Harvey has kidnapped Sherry, takes her in his car, punches Stan. Stan is left unconscious for a minute, and then I don't even remember. Harvey still has the headdress on. I mean, it's all
a very neat sort of wrap up.
It really is.
Like the rumble vision is up too high, so it's been slowly but surely vibrating the balcony away.
Yeah.
In the meantime, they're rescuing the kids out of the vault, and in the meantime, Harvey is now kidnapping. Yeah, Sherry
and
the whole deal.
Forget what happens at this point. Does the headdress come down?
No,
he can't see.
I think he just comes around the corner. He just comes around the corner and just
crashes
T-bones
or
just head-ons a car.
Yeah, and because I don't remember why he gets arrested and he's going back to
they've already called the police on him. Yeah, at this point, they've called the police
for take your pick for his crimes.
Yeah.
And at this point, so Stan and Sherry are kissing and cute, and Jean and Sandra are kissing and cute, and everybody comes out of the theater running because the balcony's falling and the movie's over, and
the finale of the movie is a nuclear explosion.
Mm-hmm.
Whether or not that's in good taste at that moment in time,
like it really was not.
No, not. But at the same time, like that's Woolsey's showman, and when he finds out about the missile crisis, he's like even better.
Yeah.
And he has this complex system of projectors that make the people think that a nuclear explosion is going off, and that there's a big hole in the screen, and that their death is impending, and forcing them all to run out because he and Picardo have seen that the balcony's going to collapse. So like, at first they're like, Picardo's like, stop the movie, and he's like, no, if we stop the movie, they'll start rumbling,
jump even more,
they'll jump,
even worse.
And it'll collapse immediately. So. Yeah, he skips to the finale of the movie to get everybody to run out. Everybody runs out and realizes it's not a nuclear attack. Mm-hmm. The car crash happens. The whole it's all boom, boom, boom.
Yes, and people, rather than being furious that they were manipulated, they say, "Oh my gosh, I'm going to see this again." Well, except you can't because the theater is now destroyed.
In the meantime,
In the meantime, I can't even remember now.
Jean's little brother is on the balcony because he forgot his cowboy hat.
I don't care about that.
And there's a whole big dramatic scene where the balcony is about to collapse, and Jean. And I feel like that scene in particular, it needed something.
Yes,
like it needed them to have had a moment before where Jean was teaching his little brother that he could trust him, and the brother was maybe not quite there. Like there is a little bit of that with them in the theaters, or they needed even better. They needed like a code word or a brother language or something where he could say something to his brother that would give him the courage to reach out.
Well, I feel like the movie is trying to say something about fear because obviously everyone's afraid of what's going to happen with the Russians and the Cubans. And in the beginning, Gene and his brother are in the theater the week before watching another horror movie, and his brother is covering his eyes because stuff's scary. And Gene's like, "No, it's not going to hurt you. It's it's fine." Well, and at one point, Woolsey says to Gene, because they become buddies at some point. Because Gene figures out that
one of
two
his
protesters
one of the protesters
fake,
is actually
and is
associated.
Is like, I'm not going to tell anybody, but.
Yeah, you gotta make it worth my while. Show me some movie magic or whatever. Yeah.
So at one point, Woolsey's talking to him and says something along the lines of, people who cover their eyes, the scary parts, they miss it. That's the whole idea of, you're afraid of something, it can't hurt you, but you're still afraid. And then it's over and life just seems so much better.
Right. You want to experience the scary part because... Yeah, it'll make you thankful for what comes out on the other side.
Yeah. So, and it feels like all that stuff that was built up, that some of that could have been brought through when Gene is saving Dennis.
Yeah,
although in that case, that was real fear that something actually might happen. So maybe it's not a problem.
But you want a scene where Gene is telling his brother this story, and then as his brother can't reach out, he goes, open your eyes.
Yeah, like he's just sitting there covering his eyes, being scared, and he opens it. So it wasn't fully realized.
Yeah, and it could just be that it's rushed. It could be that things happen on movies, studios meddle, time runs out, money runs out. So yeah, it could be that was that there was a better sort of version of that sort of subplot. But yeah, the movie has this. It's just one of those movies that is just. It doesn't really have a set up and pay off for its story. It's all of these different things simultaneously. It's the kids' relationships. It's Gene making friends at a school for the first time, giving himself permission to associate with the locals. It's
to be a kid and not be the man of the house when his dad's. I'm sure there's some of that too.
Yeah. And for the relationships to form with the girls and his obsession with horror movies, and for Woolsey's whole storyline, and for it's just so many of these threads, and they all sort of just get.
It's very neatly done. Aside from we have quibbles that, but little things, it's very neatly wrapped up, and it's and then it ends with, I guess, later that week, Gene and Sandra are at the beach together watching the military helicopters come home, and we assume that Gene's dad is on there. And they've seen Woolsey and Kathy Moriarty off. They're going to the premiere,
success
in Cleveland. She says.
Yeah, the success of this show has, they're all over the newspapers, as in right between the furniture store ad and the sports score.
They're in a filler on the bottom of C7, but
it's like I love his comment. Well, we're going up against this Cuban thing.
Yeah,
it's like about the best we could hope for.
Yeah, and they hint that they might get married and have kids. Woolsey and what's her face too, which is nice ending.
Yeah,
so
it's
a lot of fun.
It's not a top 50 all-time movie, but it's incredibly well made.
Yeah.
And the fact that it's almost, and you can kind of understand, I think in some ways, why Dante went on to direct a lot of television, because it is almost sitcom-like. Every, when you have a sitcom, like just pick any of the big ones, like Growing Pains or Family Ties, or any of those that had an ensemble cast, and you've got Family Matters, Full House, you're juggling, DJ's got the A plot, and Stephanie's got the B plot, and Danny's got the C plot.
And they all come together.
They've all got to. They all end up at a picnic where all of their plots can come together and finish. It's very 80s sitcom finish, and everybody ended up happy.
The end.
The bad guy gets carted. The police are there before he can really hurt anybody. Right. He gets carted off to jail. No one is hurt.
Holy smokes, that could get real dark real fast. Some 25-year-old teenager is kidnapping his 13-year-old girlfriend.
Yes.
Whoa, that's but luckily it wasn't that bad.
But Joe Dante, watch more Joe Dante movies.
And I feel like this was, now keep in mind, this is made 31 years after it was set. Oh dear God. 30 we are
additional 30 years.
Oh dear Lord.
This has become one of those. Do you know that if Back to the Future were made today, it would be going back to 1993.
Oh dear God. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, let's not think about that part. But despite all that, I remember really enjoying this at the time, even though so many of the cultural references, all the 60s stuff, were just completely over my head. But it was still a lot of fun. I enjoy it now as an adult. I think it's quote a period piece, but it doesn't sideline people who don't remember that.
Oh yeah.
Period.
It's approachable in that way. Yeah, you don't have to have been. I mean, it's a Happy Days, right? It's not for. It's for a quote unquote modern audience to show them something that happened in the past. It's something that's happening in the 70s that's about the 50s. It's something that's happening in the 90s that's about that's being made in the 90s that's about the 60s. And for me with the movies, I actually, a lot of the stuff hit for me because I used to spend some weekends every month with my grandmother. We would watch Elvira and other cheesy old horror movies. So a lot of those old black and white horror movies I had seen before. And so, a lot of that stuff actually did hit for me, stuff like House on Haunted Hill and 13 Ghosts and some of the stuff that they were lampooning. And then later in life, after this, I got really briefly into old horror movies, maybe around like 2000, 2001 before we met, and watched a lot of the old movies, like the ones that were like they were horrible movies, but their whole claim to fame was like, we have ghosto-vision. We have, we have horror sound.
Do you get those on DVD? And how does that even translate?
Most of them that you can't. It doesn't translate because most of them, it was a process thing, or there were glasses, or there was something in the theater, like a guy that ran through, where they blew smoke into the, so most of them are impossible to re-experience today. Yeah. But yeah, I briefly, there was I think it was somehow related to like Turner Classic Movies or something. They did like a marathon of the best movies from like the 50s and 60s.
Yeah.
And that got me briefly into like going into all these, like the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari and all this like old horror stuff, Vincent Price, Pit and the Pendulum and stuff like that. But that was like a quick phase, flash in the pan. So watching it now again for the first time since I saw Matinee the first time, more of that stuff is like, oh, I see what they're doing there. And then, of course, if you ever got into Mystery Science Theater 3000, those types of movies are right up their alley to lampoon. I would love a version of the movie within the movie with the the riff tracks guys, which are some of the original Mystery Science Theater 3000 guys, or the current Mystery Science crew doing the movie within the movie, because that would be great.
Actually, because the movie within the movie is actually really, really, really funny. Well, we said before that it was funny.
Like
but
intentionally
things like,
but...
the ant guy is like, well, this is no picnic for me. They're, did you hear what I said? Ha, 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 ha.
Or when they're like, come down from the building, we have sugar.
Yes. Or, what do you call that thing? We call him Bill. It's just so stupid and silly and delightful.
He throws down the ant farm and he declares himself the great emancipator.
Be free, my brothers. Yeah, it's just...
it's great. It's the movie
fantastic.
within the movie.
I love it.
It's great. But do we have anything else to talk about?
I don't know. Just more people should see this movie.
Yeah.
It's great. And I got to say, at the time, I did not appreciate John Goodman for the fantastic actor that he was. File him along with The Simpsons and South Park and all these other things that my family of origin did not appreciate irreverent humor. And then when I got to be like college age and took the stick out of my ass a little bit, I was like, my God, this is brilliant. My mother did not approve of Roseanne. So
and for me, John Goodman was ever present. Raised in Arizona, Roseanne, like we watched Roseanne, we were Roseanne, like we were well, except for we didn't have a dad in the household, but like we were those people. We were the sort of not rednecky, not really white trashy, but just sort of like the lowbrow white family that was poor but making it. And we were my mom was kind of a Roseanne type.
She's not nearly as
not like as gruff,
crass,
or crass.
Yeah.
But for me as growing up as a fat kid, like Goodman was the fat guy who made it.
Yeah.
Like it didn't, most of the roles that John Goodman is doing throughout his career, whether it's Gale in Raised in Arizona or Woolsey in this or others, his fatness is not part of the character. Like it helps him in this movie bring a bigger than life sort of sensation to it. And they're clearly referencing Hitchcock, who was rotund. But it's his fatness is almost never an aspect of his character. And that was like, as a kid, for whom you go to public school, like your fatness is part of your character and who you are. You're the fat kid. And even though I didn't like severely get picked on, and even then it didn't really affect me because I just learned to not care about what people think real quick. Seeing like a fat guy that made it And not because he was Chris Farley, which I love Chris Farley, but Chris Farley is the fat guy. He embodies the fat guy trope.
Yeah.
And so many of the other Kevin James types and these other guys who have gotten famous for sort of being the fat guy in their comedy group or in their group of friends. I mean, even to a certain extent, guys like John Belushi, definitely John Candy, who his fatness was often part of his character.
Mm-hmm.
Goodman was this guy who he was never the like jolly fat guy for the most part. He was just an actor and a great actor. Like if you look at him in stuff like "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?"
Oh yeah, he's done so
any
much.
Of his, any of his Coen stuff. Yeah, in any of his more serious roles, of course, as Dan, in the original run of Roseanne, like he was just that guy that was like fat, but wasn't something that defined him. So as a kid, seeing that, like it was real aspirational. Like I want to be like a John Goodman type.
Yeah.
Even though like I also wanted to be a Chris Farley type. As the fat kid growing up. So either way, and I was much more
representation.
Growing up, I was much more of a Farley or a Candy than I ever was a Goodman. But now that I'm an adult, I feel more like a Goodman. Than a Candy.
Yeah. I think the gift that the Roseanne universe gave us is really more John Goodman than anything else. Roseanne, as we know, is super problematic.
Yeah. Oh, her now. Yeah. But also don't let her spoil what that show did give us, which was a portrayal of a poor family. Yeah, you can do a think piece on YouTube about how they lived in a $300,000 house or whatever, there's no way on their salaries they can look at this. There were people, they're depicting them as so poor they would live in a trailer, but they're in a really nice house the size of the Mr. Belvedere house or whatever,
Except I'm going to, Lanford, Illinois. That just sounds like low housing costs right there.
But, putting fat parents, both of them are fat, putting poorness on display, all of that sort of stuff, that was a huge deal that you didn't often see. It wasn't like every character on television was well off, but for me at the time, there were a lot of huge things that show did, which is why the way that it sort of fell off when it came back with everything that went down with her is disappointing. And I know they continued it as the Connors, and I see clips from it every now and then, and it's never intrigued me enough to go back.
It doesn't seem to be hitting quite the same way.
Yeah. But it's cool that all of those characters, all those actors didn't get brought down by her mistake.
Yeah.
And that they did get a chance to go on for a bit.
Well, it's the Hogan family V2. The show is built around the lead actress and then she departs and the rest of it still goes on. So, sorry, that's been the John Goodman appreciation segment.
Yeah. Watch some John Goodman movies.
Yeah. Alpha House on Amazon Prime. Hilarious. Didn't go on nearly long enough. It was 2 seasons, I think. It's 4 legislators who all live together, inspired by real life. That's very good. Well, folks, we would love to know what you think about Matinee, about John Goodman, about Joe Dante movies, about, other movies that not nearly enough people have seen. Whatever. We would love to hear from you. You can drop us a line in a couple different ways. Our handle's the same for all 3. It's YSMY Podcast, YSMY for you. Show me yours. We're at gmail.com, or you can find us on Facebook or Twitter. Also, Facebook and Twitter, we post links to our new episodes, which come out every other Wednesday. So 2 weeks from today, no matter when you're listening, there'll be a new episode.
Also, we're probably like 2 or 3 episodes away from being off Twitter altogether. So we'll tell you other places to find. I'm just done with that as a platform.
Okay.
There's no point in sticking around. So,
or actually,
and we get 0 impressions on Twitter, so it doesn't cost us anything as a podcast to leave it.
Oh, my dream is dead. I want it to be a Twitter. So I'm sorry. We should say an X.
No, we don't say that.
We don't say that?
We don't say the platform formerly known as Twitter.
Okay. We're in denial. It's still Twitter.
The next couple of times we mention it, it'll be Twitter, and then we just won't ever mention it.
Okay. Well,
it'll be that easy.
Surprise. We're doing that. Okay. Anyway. For now, Facebook and Twitter.
Yeah.
And in 2 weeks, we will have a new episode, and Dave is hosting next time. What are we watching, Dave?
Well, it's the final episode, technically, of the summer. For me. So I'm wrapping up the big dumb 90s summer, which I think technically started well before summer started, but was, summer is a feeling.
It's the South. Summer is a vibe. Lasts longer.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm going to wrap that up in the only way that I know how, by destroying the world with an asteroid, or trying to, with Armageddon. Yeah.
Okay.
So there are other movies that I did.
So we go from nuclear war Armageddon to actual Armageddon.
Yeah.
Okay, good times.
There are other movies that I wanted to fit in, like Independence Day and some others. So maybe we'll queue those up for next dumb 90s summer. But yeah, we've got to end it with Armageddon. I think the uncontested biggest, dumbest 90s action movie. You don't get much bigger than Willis and Affleck.
I would say, is this
attacking
the one,
an asteroid?
Is this the one with the Aerosmith?
Yes, and
video?
yeah,
Okay.
the Aerosmith, the whole thing. So,
that is, yeah. Just you say Aerosmith, and there's probably a music video, which is just peak 90s, right there.
For sure.
Yeah. All right. Well, we will see you next time with Armageddon. In the meantime, this has been You Show Me Yours. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye. The You Show Me Yours theme song is Uplifting Electronic Indie by Winnie the Moog from filmmusic.io. Clip. Clipping. Okay. Now you do that.
No.
Yeah, you gotta go clip.
Clip.
You gotta do it until this little green light comes on.
Clip, 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 clip. I don't know what I'm doing.
Are you saying clit?
No.